Hello, ladies, and happy Thursday. So glad to see your faces. Ladies, I do not have my usual babysitter, my husband, so you may hear some screaming and some crying. It's going to be okay tonight. Ladies, tonight we have the pleasure of having Sister Glenda Marie Thomas with us tonight. Sister Glenda was baptized at the age of 10 by her father, L.L. Fleming, who is now deceased, at the West Oakland Church of Christ. Glenda Marie Thomas is married to evangelist J.C. Thomas Jr. for more than 46 years now. She's the mother of 3 young adult children, J.C. III, Lenita Renee, and Marie LaShanice. She has 1 grandson, J.C. IV, and recently Glenda and J.C. took in their 13-year-old great niece, Sahara, to raise her. Glenda is a national speaker, author, life coach, and artist who assists people to overcome obstacles in their lives. She is a survivor of brain aneurysm surgery, thank God. And in her inspiring book, The Next Chapter, Glenda shares her journey through brain aneurysm surgery. Currently, she serves at the Pleasant Valley Church of Christ in Little Rock, Arkansas, where her husband, J.C. Thomas Jr., is multicultural involvement minister. Ladies, welcome to TNT tonight, Sister Glenda Thomas. Sister Thomas, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for introducing me. And thank you, Natalie, for that song. And thank you, Sister Tessie, for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm glad to be able to pick a topic. And I prayed about it, and I was like, Lord, what should I speak on that would help? And I've been working lately with several women through grief. And we've come through a major disaster in our country. But even though that was huge, there still were other losses that were happening that didn't have anything to do with COVID. But there's been a lot of losses. I know people who have lost multiple loved ones to that dreadful disease. And I felt like I've noticed that so many times people are around before the funeral, bringing food, etc., cards. And then after the funeral's over, it gets quieter and less attention is paid. And sometimes we just don't know what to do. And I just want to share 5 major takeaways that I got from this book called Good Grief. I know we've heard that good grief, Charlie Brown. I know we've heard of that before, but that's not what I'm going to be talking about tonight. I'm going to be talking about how to deal with grief. And one of the first things that I got from this book is that loss is loss. Sometimes even we don't pay attention to our own grief because we don't realize that there's something that we've lost. It doesn't have to be a person. It could be a person. It could be the death of a person. It could be death of a pet even. End of your status, such as job or any kind of social status loss. Also, it could be the end of a relationship, a divorce, or loss of friendship. Or it could even be the loss of a precious possession, our home, or something else of great value to us. And it could be sentimental value, and we lost it. And the reason I'm mentioning all these different things is because there are some losses that may seem little, and we may find ourselves able to overcome those a little bit quicker than the bigger griefs. So another thing I want us just to think on briefly is 1 Thessalonians 4:13, number 2, is the scripture says, grieve not as those who have no hope. And some people have taken that to mean grieve not. It does not say grieve not, period. It says grieve not as those who have no hope. There is a way of grieving that can be destructive to us. And that way is, for example, if we become completely non-functional And that could be appropriate for a period of time, but it could take over till we become depressed and unable to function. And that is not healthy for us because it ends up messing with our health and our mindset, and it just goes down and it becomes very dark. And it's hard to ask for help when you're in a dark place, but I'm just here to remind you that you do need to ask for help. Sometimes you might just need somebody to sit with you. You might need somebody to pray with you, just to be around. You may need somebody to talk to. If it's more than what people can handle, you might need to talk to a professional just so you can get it out of yourself. And so that when we grieve as those who have hope, it would look like you cry, of course, you go through the things that you experience, whatever those things. We're going to talk about a few of those things in a few minutes, what some of those stages are that we go through. But it's like, eventually it's going to get better, but you accept that right now it's you don't feel good, and because you have to, your brain has to adjust to that person or that thing not being here anymore. That scripture was 1 Thessalonians 4:13. And you have to, it's weird because it's really weird because it's like the person was just there, but then they're not there anymore. But your mind is thinking that they're there. It's just this whole switch up that your life has to make. So it has to be a big change for us, especially if it's a person who we live with or that we are in contact with on a regular basis. Number 3, grief is a natural part of the human experience. Even Jesus wept. I have my volume up. Let me see. I don't know. I have my volume up as loud as I can get it on my phone. Grief is a natural part of the human experience. Even Jesus wept. In John 11:35, when Lazarus died, he was a friend of his, and he also was grieved for Lazarus's sisters who lost their loved one, and for those around. Jesus was very empathic, and he really felt for them. Even though he was going to raise them, he had compassion. So when somebody else is grieving, it's not for us to push them along the road, to try to hurry them through, because we don't like seeing them unhappy and it makes us feel bad. It's very important to be supportive, not pushy in a time of grief. I've known people who felt very put off by quick comments. Well, if your child died, well, you can have another child. That is not the point. That is not a good thing to say. You're going to see them again. Yeah, but I'm not seeing them now. That's the point. And if you feel uncomfortable with somebody else's grief, it's kind of best not to say anything, because sometimes there's residual left after someone's in pain and they're like, oh my goodness, people are saying all these things, and maybe you think it's being helpful, but it's really not. So accepting grief, you're welcome, Brenda. Grief is a natural part of the human experience. And sometimes we can, I'm just going to say it. Sometimes we can be so, I don't know, I guess it's religious. I don't know what it is,
but we forget that we're human. And the thing I love about Jesus, I'm going to tell you, is his humanity. Just like when he cried when Lazarus died, that was just such a human thing to do, to just feel with others instead of thinking, oh, I feel bad because they feel bad, so I want them to hurt. You don't say that in your head, but that's the message that feels like it's coming across when we're not attentive. If you can't be attentive, don't do shallow things when somebody's in pain. Say you praying for them, send them a card, whatever. Don't try to talk. Words can be add more pain than good if we don't really know what we're doing. Number 4, we are never sure how long grief is going to last. This is another part of that, trying to push somebody through their grief. Oh, girl, aren't you dating now? Girl, no, that is not anyone's business. If you have not been in their state, you have not been them. You don't know what they're going through. Some people never marry again. Some people do marry again later in life. But we never know how long grief is going to last. And it's different for everyone. I think that is something, if you just forget everything else I said tonight, remember that. We are never sure how long grief is going to last. And I've had people ask, well, how long am I going to feel this way? And I've asked myself that when I've gone through grief when I was younger and newer to these processes. And is you just the best thing we can do is accept that we are grieving. And if it's going on for a longer time than we feel comfortable with, maybe we need to talk to someone. But it's just your own process. It's yours. So just take your time, be kind to yourself, respect your feelings. I had to actually learn to respect my feelings. Being brought up in a home where kids were actually just told to do things. And I don't feel we were respected as people because our opinions and nothing we thought mattered. So as an adult, I had to learn to respect my feelings. And so when somebody's pushing me along, I can say to them freely, excuse me, I'm going through my process. And you don't have to be mean, just, speak up for yourself. I just need to be alone, or I just need you to sit with me. I don't really want to talk. I just want somebody to sit here. Even something that simple can define it for someone, and they can sort themselves out if they can do that or not. Okay, the next things I want to share are the 10 things that we can experience. Most of these, I think everybody has experienced on some level when you've had a huge loss. Number 1 is shock. Even if it's kind of strange over time, but it actually happens even if you know someone's going to pass away, they're sick and they're like imminently going to pass. Your system is not shocked that someone died. We've known people die for years. It's been happening since the beginning. Our body is shocked at the suddenness of it all, the finality. It's like there's no more chances. You're just like, oh, I didn't get a chance. It's like, it happened? No, it didn't. I know people have told me, given me bad news, and it's like, but I just saw them. It not like it has anything to do with the time I saw them. If a person passed, they passed. But when you're shocked, you just say all kinds of things that don't really add up. But that's what shock does. And so we're like, oh, it just can't be. It can't be. That's usually the very first thing we can experience. And then number 2, we can express our emotions. Some people are more introverted. and they prefer to cry by themselves. It's not always, but that you need to cry with someone, but sometimes it can be more helpful than you know. When you're an introvert, I'm an introvert. I have to push myself to be out there. God has pushed me as well. But when we express our emotions, that can be a range of things. It could be just screaming because you don't even know what to say. It could be crying. It could be anger. All these are just parts of the process. Number 3, we can feel depressed or very lonely. Sometimes I've known people to lose their pet, and at first I didn't understand it because I I I haven't actually lost a pet as far as dying, but like when I was a kid, my mom did take our pet. We had 2 dogs that were like strays, and we took them in, and she got tired of them, took them away to the other side of town and put them in the park or something. So, and we didn't know that's what she was doing. It just happened. And my youngest sister was so emotional. She was really crying and everything. And I enjoyed the dogs to a certain extent, but I didn't feel emotional. I just would have liked to know that it was going to happen. But my youngest sister was really upset. And it took me a while to learn in life how some people are so attached to their pets. They're just like a part of the family. And when you look at the things that animals do, like dogs, for example, they can be so loyal. Every day they come to the door and they're wagging their tail, happy to see you, or you go on a trip and you come back. It's just like your child, or they may act better than your child. Maybe that's why some people love their pets because they're really happy to see you. And you have all these memories of things they did. There've been animals that have saved people's lives, literally. So there's all kinds of attachments that people may have, and it's important to show respect for that. I offer people condolences when they say their pet died because that they're sad. Number 4, we may experience physical symptoms of distress. Physical symptoms could be from heart palpitation or heart pounding, feeling faint. Some people literally pass out, depends on the person. You could just feel sick, but you don't have a disease, but you feel sick. And it can be pains like all over different parts of your body, not specific to any one thing, any one place. And you're not going crazy. It's what happens because your whole being has been turned upside down by this big grief and this big loss. Number 5, we may become panicky. Some people have panic attacks and perhaps hadn't ever had one in life before. I used to have panic attacks. They're very debilitating feeling. If I thought I was dying for quite a while till I learned what it was. And I haven't had one in a very long time, since 1995. But they took over my life for a while. And I had to, as going through therapy, I didn't really talk about panic attacks, but talking helped me to relieve that fight or flight experience that I would feel when I was inside somewhere and I feel like I just have to run out. And it just could come on at any time. So there is help. If you do experience panic attacks, there is help. Number 6, we may feel a sense of of guilt about the loss. Sometimes people say, if only, because maybe you were thinking about calling somebody, but you decided, oh, I'll call them tomorrow. And then they passed away through the night. And then you're like, if only I had called him. What if I could have, the thing is that these if only things, we have to realize that everybody has appointed time. Only God knows when that appointed time is. Sometimes people get a sense that it's the end for them. But as far as humans, we cannot by any means say the right thing, have been the right instance to save a situation to where should put that big burden on ourselves. If only I had to convince them to go to the doctor. If you've been trying to get somebody to go to the doctor and they won't go, you're not responsible for that. And everybody has their appointed time. And it's really kind of strange when you think about it. Have you heard of, like, sometimes people have these car wrecks, the car is all mangled and the people get out unharmed? It wasn't their time. And when it is their time, it just is. We don't know if it will be by COVID, pneumonia, cancer, could be a car accident. They could fall in their yard. I mean, it's all different kind of things that can happen. So we cannot, and I recommend that you do not put that kind of pressure on yourself of saying, if only I had done this, they could have still been here. Number 7, sometimes we can be filled with anger and resentment. And one thing that we can do is, as the scripture says, be angry, but sin not. We need to confess our anger to God. God already knows that you're angry. You wouldn't be the first person that's angry because someone is gone from your life. Someone very important or some important thing has been lost. People have had fires and lost everything in that. And the thing is that God knows already. And we can tell him that we're angry, confess that we're angry, and begin to ask for strength to make it through whatever trial it is you have to go through, whatever loss it is. Number 8, resist returning. Sometimes we resist returning to what they call our new normal. Our new normal. I know some of us have heard that before. I want to read something right here about this. We are more comfortable in our grief than in the new, unpredictable world. Sometimes we can become more comfortable in our grief than this unpredictable world. We don't know what's going to happen. But you know what? Neither does anyone else. No one does. Now, some people may act like it. They may go through life very confidently. Truth be told, no one knows what's going to happen next. So we're all in the same boat. It's just maybe you realize that you don't know. Some people don't realize that they don't know. But it's important to understand that when you're feeling like you don't want to get back into life, that is not the lesson of this loss. The lesson of loss is to remind us that we need to prepare for when we leave this earth and our relationship with God, and to love on people while they're with us as much as we can. Whatever those things are that we need to be putting positive energy into, that's what we still need to do, that even if we've had loss. Does not mean you're going to jump up right away and start doing that. It's probably not good to just get so busy that you don't make space for grieving. But what I'm saying is you still have a life to live. But sometimes when we're grieving, we resist returning to our new normal. Number 10, gradually hope comes through. This is one of the stages. And this also is connected to, we never know when this moment is going to come, but gradually we start to hope again. We start to believe that we can live again, even without this person in our life. But they may not be there, but as long as we remember the things they said to us, the things they did that were good, that helped us, and we focus on the positive things that we learned from them, we gained from them, that we shared with them, they'll always be with us in a very true sense. But gradually, hope comes through. And usually it's just, it just happens. I remember after my mom passed, I was out of it for a month. I was just in the bed sleeping, and I was really depressed. I was in my 30s when my mom passed. And I was just out of it. And so I finally, one night I was asleep and I had a dream. And I had a dream that I saw her, and I noticed that I was not afraid. I knew in my sleep, I knew she was passed away, but I was not afraid. And she told me, honey, don't worry about me. I'm okay. And so I woke up that morning and I remembered what she had said. And I was like, okay, if she's okay, I can get up now. And, you know, like David, after he was in sackcloth and ashes praying for his son to live. But once he understood that his son had passed, he got up, washed himself up, and got back to his life. And that's how it was. I was like, okay, I'm getting back into life. And it's not the same for everybody. Just because I went through that doesn't mean everybody's going to go through that. But that was how I broke out of that depression. And then number 10, we struggle to affirm reality. Sometimes it's hard to say, yeah, they're gone, and then everywhere you look reminds you of them, especially if you lived near each other, and you went places locally, or they lived in the same house. It's like you have this habit of seeing them come from around the corner, or come out of the basement, come out of the garage. They're not there anymore. And we struggle to say, but he's not going to come around. She's not going to come out of there. You know, I used to always could see my grandmother coming out, of my dad's mom coming out of the kitchen when we would visit my aunt. And when I was a kid, and when she passed, it was like I could still imagine that she was going to come around that corner, but had to realize that Mama was gone. We called her Mama. We called my mother Medea. So the last thing I want to share is two things. One is this butterfly. And one of the things that is mentioned in this book is, you know, this sentence, I'll never be the same again. And sometimes people say that in a negative, they think of it in a negative way, that, you know, they'll never be happy again or something like that. But that's not what he meant by it. And I want to use this image that I drew to show.
Sister Glenda, you're muted.
Okay, I'm gonna let me see if I can show this. When we go through grief, this is a butterfly. This is a butterfly that I drew. When we go through grief, it's a metamorphosis. It's a change that can come over us, and sometimes it's like that butterfly. It begins as a caterpillar, and our experience in grief can be that ugly thing that we consider as an ugly thing that happened in our life. I do not like the way caterpillars look, so, but some people think they're beautiful, which is fine. But for this illustration, caterpillars are ugly. And they are kind of yucky looking. But what happens is after a while, they begin to go through these different stages. And one of the stages is the cocoon, and it's dark in there. It's, as a caterpillar, it doesn't have anything, just it's just its body. No wings have developed yet at the beginning of the cocoon. But after a while, wings do grow. God knows what's going on in there. I don't know, but I think we could compare it to when we're going through our darkest time, and it can be like a cocoon, but the cocoon was not meant to be the final stage. It's just a part of the metamorphosis. And so eventually one day the wings keep flapping and flapping and flapping, and they flap against the cocoon. It doesn't break it at first because the wings aren't strong enough. So you have to let the cocoon stay there until the wings break the cocoon. Then the wings are strong enough to break through and fly. And when we are then able to break through our grief, we're able to fly. We won't be the same again. We won't be a caterpillar. We'll be that beautiful butterfly. Something beautiful can come of the loss that we have. If it's just simply sharing your story when needed to help somebody else, something beautiful can come of our grief. To share how God was with us, how he set people at the right time, how you experienced him like you never did before, his care. These are things that are good things that can come from it. And perhaps we can even become aware of loving people in the present, and make a priority on being present with people and stop being so busy doing things and prioritize. If we can change and never be the same in those ways, those are some great changes. And we can experience good grief. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Thomas, for that lesson, that reminder of the grief process. Because as we walk this journey with one another, we're going to walk through grief with someone at some point, not just our own, but when we decide that, we take up this role of ministering to people, some people are going to go through that grief. And they're so hard, but I love how you reminded us of how to care for somebody else, and how to care for ourselves. Ask for help.
Yes.
Ask for help, which is so hard sometimes for us to do, because sometimes we don't, in those, you describe shock. So in that shock phase, sometimes I don't even know how to utter the words that I need help.
Mm-hmm.
And you said grief is that natural part of the human experience. And I think sometimes we think we're alone during that process, that we think that nobody will get it, nobody will understand, even though we know other people have experienced it. It's just something about our own personal experience where like nobody understands this.
Yes.
And you said it's important not to hurry someone through their grief. So important that we are long suffering, right, in that process. And you said something so profound that I think is going to help everybody. It says, I wrote down, if we're uncomfortable with that person's grief, it is sometimes good to say nothing. That just helps somebody, because sometimes it is good. And I think about reading the book of Job,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing everything that you talked about play out in Job's story, where
Mhm.
he loses everything and he's so shocked at the point. By the time I think the third or the fourth person came to him and told him something, he fell to his knees.
Yeah.
And that shook him.
Yes. Yeah.
Going through that process. And then I think about when you said that the friends didn't do it all perfectly, but for the first 7 days, they just sat with their brother.
Yes. They were doing good at first.
At first, at first they gave us a little bit of what to do and what not to do. So at first they just sat with their brother and just, sometimes you just don't know. And I think we can take a lesson from that and just sometimes do what you said and just sit and say nothing. Yes. And then you said, don't do shallow things for people. And sometimes those shallow things we do, Sister Glenda, are for ourselves.
Yes.
And yes. Not necessarily for them. It makes us feel better to say, well, I at least did this for them. But sisters, she is stressing to us that it's so important to operate from your heart.
Yes.
Your head.
Yes.
And to be human.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we are holy, but we are holy humans with this experience, and it just hurts.
Yes. Yes.
Simply put, it just hurts.
Yes. I want to thank everybody for their comments. I can't read them all, but I did see many of them. Thank you. Thank you, Iris. Yeah. Andrea is a visitor of mine. She's from Atlanta area. We just visited her this weekend, her and her husband, wonderful family. And she joined us tonight.
Hello, Andrea from Atlanta. And Sister Glenda, the last thing is the response to grief when you went over those 10 things. I have been in denial about the fact that I was even grieving. Mm-hmm. And if anyone is experiencing any of those things, and you have had a loss,
yes,
pay attention to that list. I think I've been all of those at one point during the grief process, and at one point, I just did not know. I was grieving, didn't know it, and I was having panic attacks.
Yes.
Didn't know where it came from. And then when the doctors told me, I think you're grieving, I'm not grieving. Yeah, but it will catch you off guard. So, so sisters, another thing she said is to, we never know how long this is going to last, and to learn to respect your feelings.
Yes. Yes.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
I found this that I wrote down from someone else's talk. It says, give yourself permission to be exactly where you are. Mm-hmm. It's just okay. What do you mean? I don't know. How are you doing? I don't know. But I do know I need some time.
Yes.
I'm sorry I can't take your phone call. I'm sorry I can't receive you right now for visitation. And that's okay.
Yes.
And if we ever hear that, we won't be offended. We'll know that that's just somebody's process, and we'll pray for them through the process, right? Yeah.
That's I wanted to mention like both sides of it, whether it's us or someone else, because that's a very common issue of not knowing what to say and what to do. Forget about trying to figure out the right thing to say or do, because there is nothing. That a person has had a loss, so they just need to go through their process. I want to share this book on the screen. This is the book Good Grief. People can screenshot it. You guys can screenshot it if you want.
What's that author's name? Granger.
His name is Granger Granger Westberg.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is if people are going through, it would be good, even if it's like with another person, to go through a book like that together. I'm going through that with several ladies right now, and it's really, really been helpful. They also have a workbook that goes with it as well. But anyway, I like to talk about both sides, because sometimes we don't know any better, and the person doesn't want to tell us, that is not helpful. They don't want, But when they go home or they have somebody they confide in, they say, oh, that just got on my nerve. And
Yeah.
but you don't want to do that, but it's just better to just pray for them, do unobtrusive things, and just sometimes just hug, sometimes just hold a hand, just sometimes just send a card, send some flowers, even long after the person has passed, just to say thinking of you,
Mhm.
or just because these things, it's just so simply human,
Mhm.
just simple human things.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, thank you so much for that information, for
Mhm.
just putting that on our hearts as we go through these seasons that would seem like they'll always be here. Grief will
Yeah.
always be here in some form, whether you just got some sort of news that you didn't like, whether you
Mhm.
lost a job, whether you have a child, your last kid or your first kid going
Yeah.
to college,
Yeah.
or going to
Good.
kindergarten in these next couple of days.
Oh,
You know?
yeah.
That is a process that in some form we're all going to go through. So thank you once again for that information. Ladies, if you have any questions or any comments related to this topic,